Good afternoon. Welcome. The song that you've been listening to is "The Best Part of Loving," is "Being Friends." And it was Ken's favorite song, and it's sung by his friend Jody. Good afternoon, and welcome to this Portland memorial of Kenneth Allen Zugman. We called him Ken. Today is a day for us to share our relationship with Ken and our hearts with Ken. To remember how he touched our lives and how his presence blessed us. My name is Barry Brilliant, and I was Ken's spirit brother and his best friend. Before I share my thoughts, I thought I'd give you a preview of what today's gathering is going to be. After I speak, Cousin Dan is going to speak. Cousin Carly is going to say a poem. Cousin Jack is going to speak. Cousin Joan is going to speak. Son Rod Langer is going to speak. Lisa Giretto, who is on her way here from the airport, hopefully she'll get here in time, will speak. And anyone else. I know that some people have some Army stories, maybe. Tiger will share some things. And anyone else that wants to share anything. After that, Harry Zugman, Ken's father, will finish and introduce Milt Hornstein for the Kaddish, which is, as you know, our traditional prayer for the mourners. And following him, Henry Good will say the Kaddish in English, for those that didn't understand the Hebrew. Then Barbara Slater will sing the El Rahman as Rahmin as the final salute to Ken. Practice that. And then cookies and cold drinks will be served, and it's a chance for us all to share our personal stories and maybe watch Ken's tour of Casamara, which is available on the DVD. There are DVDs and Casamara cards that we wish you to take home and have a little bit of Ken. Okay. When sharing, I ask you to please state your name and your relationship before you begin, and try to be brief. We're taping this for those who cannot attend, and I'll be adding it to the Zugman Family DVD, second edition, and the website, kenzugman.com. The first edition DVD and Ken's life is, as I said, at the table. And there's a sign-in book if you care to. Leave your email address. And we'll be updating the website with all the movies. I'll also try to put a comment section on the website, which will allow you to write your stories or put your movies or any other photographs of Ken. The idea is for us to have a location that we can keep Ken's memory alive in our hearts. I want to start my talk with the end of his obituary in the Oregonian on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2006. When we think of those companions who traveled by our side down life's road, let us not say with sadness that they left us behind, but rather say with gratitude that they were once with us. Ken lived many lifetimes in his life. He was in the armed services, a sergeant. He was a carpenter, a communal hippie. He was a student. He was a teacher. He was a psychotherapist. He was a builder. He was an adventurer. He was a hotel owner. He was a son, a father, a grandfather, a brother, a cousin, a husband, and a friend. His life was dedicated to forgiveness, understanding, compassion, and kindness. And there are stories of how he thought of these things on the DVD. As today is the official celebration of Columbus Day, it's interesting to note that Ken, the explorer, lived his life basically in three worlds. The world of Portland, right here, where he grew up with strong family values and a powerful, loving family. The world of the Bay Area, where he expanded his mind and his perceptions and learned to be a psychotherapist. And lastly, the world of Playa del Carmen, Mexico, where he built his dream hotel, Casa Mara. Ken and I shared many times, adventures, and thoughts together. I was blessed. I was able to visit many of his worlds, and I got a good sense of the wonders and gifts each of these worlds had for Ken, and Ken gave to each of these worlds. Of everything we shared, my favorite was magic. We shared real magic. I was looking around his home in Playa del Carmen just before he passed, and I found the spirit of his magic everywhere. His paintings, his wall coverings, his masks, his art, everywhere. His music collection, which was real magic for him. On his refrigerator, in magnets, I found this: no sorrow. My life is as the stream within an ocean. And this quote was on a postcard with a really cute image of a baby on it. Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and look at all beings with eyes of compassion. As I start this eulogy, I think about my brother Ken, my best friend Ken, my teacher Ken, and what he meant to me, what he meant to others. And now I feel the spirit inside me. I feel the strong Ukrainian man who lived a life anyone would be proud. I feel the joy of his life, the 63 plus years he lived and loved and shared the passion for life itself. He was quite a man, a being, a spirit. And while the man is gone, the memory of his being is not. And his spirit lives in everyone he touched. Carly, would you join me up here? Carly's going to read a poem called The Journey by Mary Oliver. I found this poem on Ken's desk, which somebody had given Ken. I think that when Mary Oliver wrote it, she was thinking of Ken.
One day, you finally knew what you had to do, and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of the clouds. And there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company, and you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Thank you. I want to talk about Kenne Zugman, what a full, rich life, and celebrate it with you, with no sorrow, but with joy. Born to Harry and Eileen Zugman, Ken enjoyed the gifts they gave him, the strength of character, the strength of will, and the desire to learn everything. He was non-judgmental. He was curious and interested in everything. He was master of his mind, from Scrabble to Trivia Pursuit. He was usually the winner. He was master of his body, from pool, racquetball, kayaking, yoga, combat conditioning, and biking. Just about everything Ken did, he excelled at. He was also master of the art of conversation and could engage anyone in a deep, meaningful way. He brought with him passion to everything he did. I think he was passionate. No one loved life like he did. It's impossible to summarize any life in a few words. And a eulogy is such an impossibility. Ken was a wonderful, caring man who connected deeply with his friends. As from one soul to another, his soul touched those around him with solid wisdom and a warm heart. If someone close to him was hurting or confused, Ken's compassionate strength and help would show up as a healing balm. He would find just the right story to tell and gently show how to move through the darkness into the light. He lives fully in the light now, and he still shares it, spreads the light around all of us who knew him, who can feel him in our hearts. Ken recently said to me he was satisfied with his life, that he had done what he came to do, to create beauty and healing. The many friends and clients he touched with his healing heart, the beauty of Casamara, the oasis he built in Playa del Carmen, these were some of the many moments of creation, of beauty and healing. He leaves these to live on in the world and in us. Even the last part of his journey, he shared and inspired us to see the wonder of life, the miracle of existence, and the absolute simplicity of being fully present in the moment. Filled with love and happiness, he continues to speak in our hearts about what is truly important and what we can let go of. During the last year, he tried to get up every morning to Mat Fury and Chinese exercises. Ken believed to keep his body in tip-top shape and was a self-proclaimed gym rat. He exercised his body, his mind, and his spirit daily. As you know, Ken died of a rare brain tumor. There's only 25,000 cases a year in the world. And very little is known about it. When he died, he left his brain to the University of California. This gift will help doctors understand the tumor that killed Ken, and in the hopes that others can be helped with this knowledge. He leaves the gift of life and wisdom, and it will continue. Ken was a fighter. After his first brain surgery, he was given 50 weeks and no more to live. In an attempt to fight, we went to Houston for, as it turns out, a bunco treatment. When his tumor grew back 110% in less than 2 months, he was given another choice: to have another surgery or to surrender to the tumor. He said, "Why, it's been weeks since my last brain surgery. I sure do miss it. Let's have another round of surgery, please." Ken was a fighter that loved life so much, his attitude in living is an example for us all. Whenever our hearts ache or tighten, we listen for his words, "This moment is precious. Life itself is a miracle. Love surrounds us. You are fully alive in the miracle of life right now. That is who you truly are, just open to love. Feel the warmth of the sun." I want to call your attention to the forgiveness story on the DVD. Ken, in his own words, tells the story of how it happened. This was videoed in his bed in Casamara, Playa del Carmen, just before we left for the States and his final battlefield. He wanted us all to practice forgiveness, understanding, compassion, and kindness. And the knowledge it comes in time. His life was a teaching for himself and for everyone that loved him. There are so many examples of the unique quality of his wisdom and dedication to healing and how he loved to share that with his friends. I've been battling my weight since early adulthood. And I've been on diets, and Ken would always say the same thing to me. He would say this to me regarding not just eating, but any habit or behavior pattern which was a challenge. "I urge you to try it because it works." Ken would say, "Don't let what you want right now get in the way with what you really, really want." And if you say it, and if I said it, all of a sudden, the action, it changes and it becomes conscious. And maybe, just maybe, you have a chance to rethink the behavior before the fact. It does work. It has worked, and I urge you to allow it to work for you. Take a little Ken wisdom inside you, and in this process, you will become more of who you really are. Each moment is so precious. Each day is such a gift. Let's all learn from our teacher, Ken, and Ken will live in each of us. In his last weeks, he wanted to share his life and himself fully to those whom he loved. He married Sandra Garcia 10 days before his passing. It was a gift of love for a woman who supported him and helped him peaceably, with love, leave this life. You can see his joy in expressing his love for her on the DVD. Sandra gave me this last thing which Ken wrote, which was, with an open heart and with an open and loving heart, I wish to serve my God, my Sandra, my family, my friends, my community, my world. My wish is to bring peace and joy into the world. Ken has been a true brother to many of us. He is a few steps further on the journey now that we all travel alone and together. He now lives fully in the light, and to feel his presence in our heart is to feel the joy and wonder of existence. Here, he is here in our hearts, ready to speak to us, as always, whenever we want to feel his healing touch, his light humor, his gentle wisdom, or his deep love, and it helps us find peace. I think Dan wants to come up and say a few words.
Hi everyone. I'm Cousin Dan. And growing up with Ken, he was the older tier of cousins. Janet has that very knowing smile. And frankly, we didn't do that much together. Janet was the closest in age, and then there were the others. It was only later in life, and in fact another world, that Barry didn't mention, and that was the Hawaiian world.
The explorer.
The explorer part. And I used to go over to Hawaii with my plant business in the mid-70s and travel the islands hitchhiking. This one time I rented the smallest compact car in the world, and Ken met me. And we spent some incredible time together, camping in the state parks, living off the land, eating mangoes and coconuts, and living in everything from fishing villages to the state parks. One evening we spent in a Jesus apartment building, which was rather different. And I got to know him. We were both adults, and I got to know him on a whole different level. And I wrote a little poem for Ken. My cousin Ken was more to me than a passing face at a family meet. The Zugman blood that we both shared reflected in the way he cared. Those doe-brown eyes, they saw the world like a bed with all its sheets unfurled, inviting all to a softer place where one could rest and find their space. I had the pleasure once to share some time, Hawaii bound, a trip sublime, camping nightly in the parks with locals round the campfire sparks. It was here I met the inner Ken, the spirit that we miss, with humor, smarts, and a bit of grace, those knowing eyes that filled his face. Your spirit's here, there is no end. I'm honored, cuz, to be your friend.
Another poem for you. This one's called Life's Victor. Let none of you weep for me, especially you with whom I've smiled, nor bow down your head in utter grief. Put on no mourning, as if the pall induces forgetfulness and conceal all we've done together. We have lived. Remember, we have learned and labored and wrought. What our hands found to do we sought, in quest to raise to nobler height. My life was blessed in the living. I was happy so to live.
Yeah? Yeah.
I want to thank Uncle Larry and Emily for asking me to speak. I guess hearing Danny, I guess I had a foot in each of the tiers. I'm his fourth cousin. My earliest memory of Ken was censored from the slideshow. It's a picture of me in a tutu, Ken in a tutu, and my cousin Joan, or my sister Joan, my sister now, in pants. It may not seem scandalous now for men to be dressing in, or boys to be dressing in dresses, but in 1956, it was pretty scandalous. I always thought of Ken as the tall, handsome cousin with such a wit and such panache. He another memory, probably in mid-70s, was him driving up in his, he had a TR3, a little sports car convertible, in front of my grandma and grandpa's house. And as he got out of the car, I don't remember if it was my father or my grandpa Misha, who asked him, because Ken was very tall, how he fit in this car. And immediately Ken said, my legs unscrew and they go in the trunk. Pretty classic Ken story of his quick wit. Like Ken, I also trained as a psychotherapist, and some of the mandatory reading that I'm sure Ken went through and was by a Jewish philosopher named Martin Buber, who died probably in the mid-60s, who described what it meant to be present for people. And this is a class Ken could have skipped. Ken was always present and there for people, like very few people I know. And what's, Ken took it to a higher level because it wasn't just that he was paid to be present for people, he thrived on it. This was his life's blood, just being there for people. And as I can see today, he's still here for people.
Cousin John?
I know that Ken would want me to relay a happy memory, and this memory may have been one of his first adventures. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ken's cousin, and we are the same age and lived across the street from each other until we were 5 years old. And at the age of 5, Ken invited me to go for a walk with him. And we lived on Northeast 39th, about less than a block off of Fremont. And he would always hold my hand when we went on our walks. And he walked me down the street and down Fremont about 3 blocks to a little store that had a soda fountain in it. And we sat up at the soda fountain, and the waitress came over and said, well, what would you two like? And we said, hey, this is cool, you know, like milkshakes or whatever we ordered. And it wasn't long after that that she realized that our parents were not in the store, and it wasn't long after that that our adventure ended. And he did love adventure. We had great times at family functions because we were the same age, and we double dated in high school, and just becoming hippies and keeping in contact over the years, it just was wonderful. He would email memories to me, and one was especially his enjoyment when the family went to Nescolin. And he wrote that he'd spend 2 weeks playing on the beach, climbing the huge rock on the beach, horseback riding, and catching crabs. And he did love the beach. He was also very helpful with any problems I was having when we were in high school, hassles with school, parents, friends. And this was before we graduated and way before he became a psychotherapist. I think he was born a psychotherapist. My mom and I enjoyed visiting Ken at Casamara, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And Ken was loved by the whole town. At the time, I think the town was a lot smaller. I was surprised to see his tour, and it's all paved now, because the street was just sand when I was there. But, we loved talking about books and recipes and our favorite Jewish meals and our grandparents and other family members. And he always wanted to know what was going on with the family. I miss him dearly.
A man is as great as the dreams he dreams, as great as the love he bears. As great as the values he redeems, and the happiness he shares. A man is as great as the thoughts he thinks, as the worth he has attained, as the fountains at which his spirit drinks, and the insight he has gained. A man is as great as the truth he speaks, as great as the help he gives, as great as the destiny he seeks, as great as the life he lives. Rod?
I've heard said a couple times today that talking about Ken's grace, you can have grace. And there's lots of meanings to the word, saying grace before dinner, to move with grace like a dancer. But what I mean by it, Ken, is moral strength, goodwill, seemingly effortless charm, and divine love bestowed freely on people. And it's no wonder that he had some of those characteristics. My introduction to the family has been relatively recent, but my wife, my children, myself have all been warmly received into the family. Dispositions of character, virtues, and vices are progressively fixed in us through practice. What moral tools that Ken had, he received from his parents, from his family as he grew, and went out, developed them for himself, and tackled the world with them. Although I didn't get to know him very long, when we finally met, Ken was living in Mexico. It's pretty awesome, though, that so much of his family is right here within a short driving distance of where we are. Just kind of incredible. And I can at least get to know Ken a little bit better through some of the people that he loved and that loved him, even if I didn't get to spend lots of time with him here. What I did get to see of Ken, though, was that he always seemed to approach things with a sense of calm and grace. I don't know if he was always like that, but he was like that with us. Of course, it's easy to appear like you have a sense of calm grace when everything's going well, when you're living in the tropics and making a respectable living. But Ken proved that he had more than just a show of grace. Ernest Hemingway's definition of guts was grace under pressure. And I'm sure Ken had his down days when he was diagnosed with cancer. Yet he did approach his battle with cancer in a very courageous and very graceful manner. Was he afraid or did he worry? Well, I'm sure he did both. Courage is not the absence of fear, but it is being afraid and yet still facing your fears, which he did very well. Ken gave me 3 gifts. First, he welcomed me into a loving family. Second, he gave me a great example of what life is like with enduring friendships, some spanning 30 years or longer. Barry, Lisa, Peter and Kay, Tiger, others I don't know really, but I know he had these enduring 30-plus year friendships, which is incredible. Lastly, he showed me how to deal with the reality of death. He was daily thankful for every breath, appreciative of people. He did not rage against the reality of what was going on, but approached it with grace, while still fighting for every moment of life that he could have. The author Samuel Butler said, "There's no true gracefulness which is not epitomized goodness." That there was goodness in Ken is not in doubt by any. How do you maintain a 30-year friendship without being attractive and worthwhile to your friends? You're stuck with your family, but your friends can make choices about your value. I must say, honestly, that I wrestled myself internally with how to feel about all this, how to feel about my relationship with Ken. Sometimes it's awkward for me a bit, I have to admit. I've held Ken's hand as he was dying and wept, but I can't put into words why. I've wished for more from his life and experiences than I got. I wished I could have known him better. I wish that we could have progressed from being friends to being father and son, but I think that some things must be laid out early in life, and we didn't have that time. Still, we had time enough that he was able to introduce me and mine to all of you. He showed me Kazamara and what his heart was like through the fashioning of what he did with his hands and his mind, and he showed me what it was like to live a life with generosity, grace, and peace. And I hope my life is as creative, my relationships as deep, and my end as full of grace. So thank you, Ken, for providing me a good example.
Thank you, Rod. And, Rod and Ken's story of how they met for the second time is on the DVD. I'm watching Lisa Toretto as the cab is pulled up, so perhaps we can have Tiger give an old Army story.
I just asked Barry's name because I just met him. And so I've been asked to speak because I was telling Barry about Ken and I in the Army. And my name's Walter Bauman. I've known Ken since 1969. We met in the Army at Presidio in San Francisco. And that was quite a time back then. Things were really changing. And at that time, Ken and I both had mainstream jobs and wished not to have the jobs. We felt we got responsible too early. So when I met him at the Presidio, he was he would change into short hair from long hair. Many people at the Presidio at that time had long hair. It was San Francisco. And, but they had short wigs, and Ken was one of those. So Army would go with the short wig when he attended the meetings. We processed paperwork for the 6th Army, and it was a pretty playful unit. And we were all men in suits, and we didn't crawl on our bellies or didn't shoot rifles. But let's see. Oh, okay. Back in our unit, there were 10 of us that were clerk typists. And Ken was a sergeant, and I was a corporal. And our leader was Captain Majors, who was from Alabama. And she had a very pronounced Southern accent. And many days, she'd come to me and say, "Corporal Bauman, could you kindly find Sergeant Zugman? He seems not to be anywhere that I can see." And the kick was then she would ask me, or ask Ken, "Sergeant Zugman, could you find Corporal Bauman?" And we'd either be in the showers that weren't used in the Presidio for showers, but we would listen to the Oakland Raider football games on the floor of the shower, just hiding out. Or Ken might be downtown, down by the bay. It was such a beautiful place. And so it was great fun doing that. Ken was the most faithful friend I ever had. And I guess he still is. I'm out there, and I go way off, and I'm excitable, and Ken will let me go, and he had great delight as I took off on my rants or playfulness. Nobody was more delighted with it than him, but then he would just quietly bring me back to center, and I'd sort of be pleased. I'm not sure, I was just asked this on the spur of the moment, but I can see, I knew when Ken had cancer and we met in the Sherry's restaurant, and I've never seen anybody with more grace and beauty and guts. I was astonished, and when I left him at that Sherry's, I just, for the next week, I was just blown away how, that I knew somebody with that depth and and guts and grace and gentleness. And I have not gotten over it. I guess I used to take it for granted, but once he got cancer and met me, and I just was in awe.
Thank you very much, Tiger. Well, Lisa Giretto has come in. Gosh, the poor girl, she just comes from the airport. And Lisa is Ken's spirit sister for many, many, many years. And we're really lucky to have her. Thank you.
So sorry, my plane was delayed by an hour. Hi. Ken was my brother. Ken married my sister 25, maybe 28 years ago. And he immediately became part of the family. He was my brother, truly a brother. And what made him a brother? Here was this guy who walks into our life and shared our hearts in such an amazing way. He penetrated each one of my family members in a way that was quite exceptional. I only know one other person in my life who affected me in that way, and that was my father, with whom Ken was extremely close. He and my dad, I think mainly because he missed his parents so much, because he loved his parents so much, that he connected with my dad, also named Harry, and my mom, in a way that was really something. So when they split up, everybody in the family basically dumped my sister because she wasn't married to Ken anymore. We were all very mad at her. And Ken remained my brother. Isn't that terrible? It's true, though. Ken stayed part of the family, and she drifted away, interestingly enough, although she's still my sister. Of course, I love her. Ken was a wise man, which was nice that he was intelligent. I liked his brain, and as I got to know him more in the last year and a half that we spent a huge amount of time together, I realized what a big brain he had and how he was using it in such a remarkable way during this great time of challenge. But still, despite the fact that he wanted to kill me in Scrabble, fiercely competitive, mean, he wanted to win. Nothing was more important than Ken's kindness and warmth and soul. There's nothing else about Ken that was more important than being kind and gentle and loving and making each person he came into contact with feel important, feel acknowledged, and feel loved. And Ken gave me a huge amount of camaraderie, security in this world. Just was the finest man. And I will always celebrate his life every day. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share? If not, I'd like to introduce Harry Zugman. Ken's dad, say a few words.
I've been thinking I've had to do this for some time. realize it isn't easy. But I do have a couple of thoughts I want to express about Ken.
Close it to the mic, please.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of thoughts that I want to bring out. As so eloquently by our Master of Ceremonies here tonight, Barry. And first of all, I wanted to show you about his one situation. When Ken was in high school, he had attained his full growth, 6'2". Our neighbor, that happens to be in the audience here tonight, Rosalie Goodman, had a son who at the time was 5 years or less old, but very short, even short for a 5-year-old. Anyway, one afternoon, Craig, the boy, comes up to our door, rings the doorbell. Eileen answers, and Craig, in his very charming voice, "Can Kenny come out and play with me?" I'm sorry, Craig. Ken is in school today. Oh, I forgot. Goodbye. But it just shows Craig, no big. Ken, up here, didn't make any difference to Ken. Whether they were black, white, green, tall, slim, he loved everyone. Craig and he got along famously. Craig worshiped Ken. When he'd walk around, Craig's eyes would follow him wherever he went. And that's the start. We knew something was there, but we didn't know what. Later on, Ken moved to the Bay Area, and excuse me. He'd been living down there with Tiger for some time. Eileen and I came down, and he saw us get out of the car. He ran over to us, picked up his mother like a rag doll, swung her around like she was nothing. I mean, he was just hilariously happy. And he says, "Today is the best day of my life. My folks are here for me, and I appreciate it, and oh boy, does it feel good." Also, he says, "Today I accomplished something. I paid my last bill of what I had, bills that I had made over the years." And he says, "I did not go through bankruptcy. I paid off everybody, and I feel great about that." That's, his mind was, he did not want to leave any stone unturned in his name. As time goes on, he goes to Casamar. Builds a beautiful place from what I've heard. I've never seen it. I've seen pictures of it, yes. But Ken was known as the unofficial mayor of Casamar because he could walk down the street, could never finish the whole block. Because kids from across the street would run over. "Ken, hi Ken, hi Ken, hi Ken." People would just admire him, everything. And everybody shaped manner and form. Ken was their man. He loved them all, and they loved him. That's the main thing. And as time goes on, he finally finishes building Casamar the way he wanted. He's on the top floor of his building. He's laying in a hammock. He can look out through the open window at Cozumel, which is 8 miles away. And at night, he said, it's like looking in your neighbor's bedroom window. It's just so close. It just feels so close. I'm here in the hammock. I'm happy, and this is my life, and I hope that I'll be happy here the rest of my life. And that was Ken. And thanks to everybody. Mainly, I want to thank everyone for coming here today. And we've got a good-sized crowd here, it seems. I want to call on Bill Hornstein to say the Kaddish in traditional Hebrew, after which I hope he's in the crowd someplace. Of course I can't see very good, so nobody's been looking. But I hope that Henry Good is here, who will then say the Kaddish in English, so that everyone can realize the beauty of the two combinations.
Bill's right here.
All right.
Okay, let me bring
Yeah. Following that, Barbara Slater will sing El Rachamim, which is the final salute to the departed. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it.
Henry here?
Henry's in there.
Okay.
Good. Henry's here.
Although I've never had the honor of knowing Ken, I feel very honored to be saying Itilal Mitilash Nerabal. Yomar Dibrak Rute, Yamli Makute, Hayakon, Yomekon, Ayakon, Bait Displayer, Argo Arvid, Manfrodi, Ruamain, Yehesh Nerabal, Barak, the Alam Omein Maya. Yitbarak, Yistabak, Yitbar, Yitlamam, Yitmasay, Yitadar, Yitalevatal, Maybe Kuchah, Ridu, Leilam, and Talmud, Shirata, Tusmata, Letmata, Damiran, Biomab, Bibrulamain, Yehe, Slama, Rabba, Mitchmaya, Chaim, Aleinu, Biokal, Yisrael, Bibrulamain, says Shalom, Biloma, Kuya, says Shalom. Aleinu, Biokal, Yisrael, Bibru, Amen.
Henry, would you come up?
I can't,
Can the mic come over here? Henry has a really big voice, so I think if he reads the English and we're quiet, you'll hear him okay.
Oh, wait a minute here, let's just make a way. Sure. And they thought the Red Sea wouldn't harm.
The Kaddish, of course, the Kaddish originally was Aramaic, so it goes back a few years. Ramonas Kaddish. Magnified and sanctified be the name of God throughout the world which he hath created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom during the days of your life and during the life of all the house of Israel, speedily, yea, soon, say ye, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and ever. Exalted and honored be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he, whose glory transcends, yea, is beyond all praises, hymns, and blessings, that man can render unto him, and say ye, Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel, and say ye, Amen. May he who establish peace in the heavens grant peace unto us and to all Israel, say ye, Amen.
El Malay Rachamim, in English, O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Kenne Zugman, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion, may he rest in peace.
while you're all standing, you can just right over there to have some cookies and cold drinks, and thank you all very much for coming.